The early life of the Italian artist Umberto Boccioni was marked by the excitement and anxiety of departure. And these are his subjects in Farewells. The picture was painted in 1911 in Milan, where Boccioni had finally settled at the age of 25, 4 years earlier. Here, Boccioni tries to convey the uncontrollable emotions people feel on parting from each other, as well as the odd details that stick in their memory of such occasions, like the train's number plate. Crowded railway stations, crowded streets in all their confusion, cityscapes instead of landscapes. These were subjects artists should turn to in the 20th century, according to the avant-garde association founded in Italy by Marinetti and called the Futurists. Boccioni joined the Futurists in 1910. In the speed and noise of trains, which he described as smoking serpents, he saw means to convey the confusion of the crowd in the modern city. In fact, the confusion of the whole of modern life, with its distractions and contrary signals. But Boccioni didn't simply illustrate Marinetti's ideas. He had distinct concerns of his own. He was intrigued by effects of atmosphere, by the strong emotions evoked by bold colors, and by the use of intercutting lines to suggest how objects impinge on each other. These interests arose from his own experience during the previous 10 years. Boccioni uses elements of the pointilliste technique of the neo-impressionists here, along with the unrealistic colors, orange, green, lilac, of expressionism, and the multiple perspectives of cubist painting. But none of these on their own could really convey the main feature of the train's arrival, which was movement, a subject far more suited to the cinema screen than to the painter's canvas. 15 years before this painting, one of the most sensational of the Lumiere brothers' films had shown precisely this subject, the arrival of a train in a station. Many of the Futurists were fascinated by film and the photography of movement. And like them, Boccioni combined what painting had taught him with what was to be learned from the cinema. Here he shows the engine and the carriages of the train at several different points as they move towards us. The gestures of the couple embracing at a carriage window are repeated again and again across the picture in various forms, as though they were recurring in a dream, or in the memories of the two people recalling the moment of farewell long after it is past. Boccioni admits that an imaginary world conditions our perception of reality, and that our experience of the present is rarely simple or direct. Purely in visual terms, the scene is very complex because of the multitude of different points of view focused on one event, the arrival of the train. Boccioni's picture is a painter's equivalent of the fractured vision of modern city life, which also attracted many writers at this time. Andrei Belle's Petersburg and James Joyce's Dublin are part of the same tradition. Boccioni's painting shows a synthesis of many moods to match its synthesis of many moments. The insistence on emotion, as well as motion, distinguished Boccioni from most other futurists, who looked on movement purely as a visual phenomenon. Giacomo Balla's famous studies of a violinist's hands, or of a dog trotting along on a lead, show much more interest in mechanism than in mood. But Boccioni was too well aware of the value of tradition to imagine he could manage without it. Marinetti, seen here with Boccioni and others in a photograph from 1912, fiercely rejected the past, so as to embrace the future all the more fervently. Boccioni was much less prepared to reject all earlier art out of hand. His own Manifesto of Futurist Sculpture, published that year, presented some recent and contemporary work, including sculpture by Rodin, in order to show what the Futurists could learn from it. He didn't fully share Marinetti's conviction that the new was necessarily better than the old. And the beauty of cars and aeroplanes, so famously extolled by Marinetti, is a long way from Boccioni's own choice of symbolic vehicle, the essentially 19th century steam engine. The Boccioni works, now in the Museum of Modern Art in New York, reveal the many ways he found to approach the central subject of motion and emotion. Farewells is the first of a series of 3 scenes which Boccioni grouped under the title of States of Mind, Stati d'animo. The 2 other paintings show the 2 groups of people in the first scene, those going away and those staying behind. The departing are rushed helplessly forwards. Towns and landscapes fly past too fast to be taken in. The travelers are both lulled and battered by movement, by unfamiliar sequences of lights and new patterns, by a mixture of dread and exhilaration. In contrast, those remaining are weighed down by the grey monotony of mundane reality, a dense forest of impending obstacles, where the only novelty is the awareness of a deep sense of loss. Edvard Munch, whom Boccioni admired enormously, anticipates this use of line and color to connect figures and environment into a powerful experience of mood. In a study for his painting of 1892 called Melancholy, the pale void of sky and beach seems to oppress the lone, hunched figure who clings to the foreground. Mood and setting come together once again in Farewells. The moment of departure, signified by the color and noise of the approaching engine, brings to the surface the longing and anxiety felt by the couples. But it is these feelings themselves that make this moment one to be dreaded. In his 1912 manifesto, Boccioni spoke of his aim of showing the interaction of inner and outer forces, and this seems to describe what he has achieved here. Boccioni's concern with the forces motivating his subjects had first led him to treat this theme in abstract terms. This is the first version of Farewells, painted 10 months before the second. We can recognize certain elements from the later picture, notably faces. It was Cubism, which Boccioni studied on a visit to Paris at this time, that offered an alternative. A thoroughly realistic treatment of the 3 scenes would clearly not have served Boccioni's purpose. But he found that the Cubist system of dismantling and then reconstructing objects offered a sufficient degree of abstraction without the loss of the all-important sense of mass. Boccioni also applied this discovery to his sculpture, such as his Unique Forms of Continuity in Space from 1913. In works like this, he came nearest of all to going beyond the object as usually shown, in order to present it from a totally new perspective. Yet in his more traditional portraits, like this one showing his mother, there is a very strong sense of human warmth. And even in his more adventurous work, we find the same forceful stamp of personality, the same engagement with his subjects, the same concern for emotional and psychological values as for physical and visual complexities. There can be little doubt that Boccioni remembered every one of the sensations felt by the people we see here, both those who leave and those who stay behind. In confronting his memory, not a painless process, he has given us images that jog our own memories of parting, but at the same time, he offers us consolation.